I was encouraged last night when I saw that Michael Gove, the Levelling Up Minister, had approved a coal mine that was going to be started, a £165 million project, I understand, up in a place called Whitehaven near Cumbria. I don't know how the people of Whitehaven feel about this, but I felt that this was positive news. I know we haven't had coal mines or new coal mines started up for decades, but this is for the British steel industry. And I think this is, it's a good move. I think it's a positive move because at the moment, if we're not producing our own coal or the coke for making British steel, which is having to compete, I guess, with China, and I know that was in the news a while ago, that we would have to be importing it. And that, of course, would involve fossil fuels in moving it from wherever it's coming from, whether it's from America or other places. And while I know that there'll be a lot of people who'll be going, wait, coal mines, isn't that going backwards? Isn't that a backward technology? And shouldn't we be investing in wind and solar and other things? But we need the steel now. It's an absolute necessity for this country. We need the employment for people. But more than anything else, in my mind, I think being self-sufficient, independent, and having a touch of good self-esteem for being able to produce stuff from our own island when we've got it has got to be a good thing. That to me is the best thing. My videos generally are about England and Englishness and my feelings about England, and I am proud of this country, not so much proud of the government and some of its things that it's been doing and how it's being pushed and manipulated, I think, by other world leaders and potential, well, what can I say, with being delicate here, other institutions or organisations that are trying to have more of a world government, which I thoroughly disagree with. Being back to being independent in some fashion, even though this is just for the steel industry and it's not producing our own energy, which I would like to see. I think that if we have the ability to frack our own gas, for example, or then we should at least investigate this a hell of a lot more. I thought Rishi Sunak, when he was being interviewed or questioned rather for the previous time when he was trying to be Prime Minister, he said absolutely he would go for fracking, and now he's ruled it out, which I just think that being independent and being as self-sufficient as we can and not relying on other countries surely has to be a good thing. We saw it with food during the First and the Second World Wars, where we suddenly, being launched into a war, we were importing 3/4 of our food from overseas, and during the war we had to dig for victory. We had to grow stuff ourselves, and now it seems that we just, you know, it's almost like one of these what would you call it, like we just take away from other people all the time, and yet we could do it. One of the things that I worry about is, while we need housing, we seem to be building on farms. And I understand that there may be unprofitable farmland and farmers are giving up and they're selling the land. But for me, that's unforgivable, because the land, especially farmland, which has been used for growing food for generations after generations, food is the most important thing that we have to have. We have to have food and we have to have water. and just importing it across from other places because it's cheaper does seem to me to be detrimental to us. That we need as much as we can to be self-sufficient. Now, I get it. People may disagree and they may say the economics of that, our climate isn't very good for certain things, and I understand all of that. But we did do it in the past, and I would be encouraged if we could do more of it rather than just build on the farmland. So when I heard the business about the coal mine, and I understand that the technology will be vastly improved so that it is as zero polluting as possible, which of course wouldn't have been the case, you know, a few decades ago, let alone hundreds of years ago at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. But the fact that it will give people jobs, that it will give us that feeling of being a bit more self-reliant and I don't know, it's being proud to not have to rely on everybody else for stuff, and I wish we could do more of that. I just want to say something about the comments whilst I'm here. A couple of people have said, Richard, my comments are either disappearing or they're not showing up, or that there is some sort of editorial thing going on. Well, since I've been doing these opinion pieces, and they are just my opinion, you know, I'm not an expert, I'm just a member of society in this country, and these are my views. Nobody has to agree with my views, let's be honest, and you may vehemently disagree, and you're entitled to do that. I'm not editing the comments, but let me just say that there are some parameters that YouTube will fish out comments that are full of profanity or have swear words in them, and they'll remove them for review. They'll also take away anything that is a link to somewhere else. So some people put just a YouTube link and they get stripped out. Some people at least put an explanation of what the YouTube link is, and that means that I can, when reviewing them, I can see what they are. But because of the quite large numbers of people putting comments on, I unfortunately just don't have the time to go through every single link and see what it is. So it is, you know, if you want to put a link, at least put an explanation rather than just a link to a video, because when I look at it, it's fairly meaningless. So some of those do get stripped out. But even then, some people have said, but there's still, you know, my comments have disappeared, even though I've gone to try and find them. And I don't know why that is, but I just thought I would mention that. Finally, I'm not an expert on many things, but I am a member of the society here, and these are my opinions I'm sharing with them, and I've found that since putting up some of my opinions, people want to not so much argue or debate, but either add to the conversation. And I think that's very important. So things like the coal mine, I think is a good thing, but I'd be interested to know whether you think it is. I think it's a disaster if we're aiming for net zero on its own. I think it would be unwise not to at least try and get some gas out of the ground that we have, so that we're not becoming dependent so much on other places. And I would like to see that with food. But you may completely disagree, and of course you're absolutely welcome to.